Canada has a problem. Actually, it has many problems. These problems are the top concerns on everyone's mind: the cost of living, insane housing prices, lack of high-paying jobs, a broken healthcare system, high taxes, and a growing population. It has billboards dedicated to this and is quickly dividing the country between the haves, current homeowners, and the have-nots, the non-homeowners. Some Canadian residents will say it's not so bad, while others are absolutely furious with Canada's state of affairs. However, there's no denying Canada is nowhere near what it once was decades ago, and many feel it seems to be falling apart, brick by brick. So, this video not only answers the questions about how we got here, but where we might be headed. How on earth did Canada, one of the largest countries in the world, run out of room?
I always go back to this image of a sinking ship. You know, the ship is starting to go down, and yet the captain has to plank the board, and he's still calling people to get on, saying, "Come on aboard!" And yet the ship is continuing to sink. This is actually the second part on a video series, The Downfall of Canada, that I'll be releasing. I've lived in Canada all my life, working as a 20-year Canadian corporate accountant.
Spartans! What is your profession?
These are the number of housing starts by year in which home construction actually broke ground. It was high in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but then crashed in the early 80s. Then it rose abruptly in the late 80s and early 90s, and has risen since, except of course, in the housing crisis, setting new records. On the surface, there may seem to be a lot of homes being built, as it looks like record highs. However, the population has doubled since 1976. Only 16% more homes have been built. So why haven't more homes been built to keep up with the growing population? Well, it's complicated.
Has gone crazy.
He said, if you don't like it, move out.
Labor costs and the price of construction materials have increased.
Predominantly, our housing supply comes through some form of investment and profit seeking.
More profit from every single unit that they own.
We need to build more homes faster, here in London, but also right across the country. It's because we're facing a shortage of housing right now.
So, on a side note, just to do a quick little rant, I guess if you could say. So if you live in a city or town where it's only considered moderately unaffordable, well, that's considered good now. It's actually good. So it's kind of quickly pointed out by the government that they're like, quick, over here. That's still kind of affordable, somewhat.
Alberta is quickly growing.
More than 87,000 people moved to Alberta.
Alberta, we're a country, will be the fastest growing population in the world.
Through 2022, people are moving in droves to Alberta instead.
And it drives up the prices there. And it's like, you feel like a resident sitting there going, shh, don't say, don't, well, thanks a lot, you know, and your prices go up. Well, of course, I want everybody to be able to get by, and some people, they have to move, come on over. But in a way, you know, you kind of feel like you're a resident there and you're, great, thanks. Now my cost of living just went through the roof.
Soaring demand has driven up home prices at a time where there isn't a lot of housing to go around.
From housing to education fees, gas and groceries, everything has gone up in price.
What are you doing? Why are you trying to inadvertently or advertently directly drive up the cost of living everywhere? Why? You're killing us here, like Trudeau. Oh my God, buddy, quick, get him, you know. Hey, quick, everybody, over here. It's like, stop it. Anyway, that's my rant, but I don't know. Hopefully you can relate to this, you know. The issues surrounding Canada's downfall are complex, and these are the remaining key issues that I'll be examining. Since it's such a complex and highly debated topic, this is part 2 of a series surrounding the subject. Number 1. Housing supply shortfall. The Canadian government has to build approximately 3.5 million homes by 2024. This is the projections it has to hit. And Canada is expected to grow by anywhere from about 2.5 to 3 million by 2030. So by 2030, the Canadian government is hoping to increase supply by approximately 3.5 million homes. That equates to about 455,000 new homes that have to be constructed every year. in order to meet this target. And currently they're not even coming close. They're only at 255,000 units per year. And they know this. They know they're falling behind on their projections. And it kind of baffles me, because one of the major setbacks why they're not able to get these homes built in time, just cut out the red tape. Cut out the red tape. So if you get rid of all this red tape and eliminate some of these zoning restrictions, like you're the government, to speed it up.
Simply can't make the numbers work. So there needs to be, I think, more cooperation here with all levels of government to ensure that developers can speed up the construction of new rental, because if not, we're going to be dealing with an even more challenging affordability environment in a few years than we're dealing with right now.
Other people say that even building more supply, more homes, won't actually solve the problem. But I say, let's cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's try building the homes, increasing the supply, which will hopefully somewhat balance out the supply and demand curve.
We now have a society and a city with more and more households without enough money to generate what's called effective market demand.
Effective market demand. That means enough people with enough money to justify building more housing.
Canada's population is expected to reach 63 million by 2072, driven largely by immigration, with an influx of 440,000 newcomers annually. With the average Canadian household containing 2.4 people, this population growth requires 183,000 new homes per year just to keep up. Currently, Canada builds about 247,830 homes annually, leaving only 63,000 units available to address the country's existing housing shortage, which is estimated at 3.5 million units. At this pace, it would take 55 years to close the housing gap, meaning the youngest Canadian millennials wouldn't see housing affordability return to 2004 levels until they are 83 years old. Canada needs to build 83,000 homes annually just to keep up with immigration, but the Trudeau government's plan to build 552,857 homes per year to address the housing shortage is seen as nearly impossible. Experts, including TD economists, are sceptical, calling the goal unrealistic. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, predicts much lower home building rates, leaving only around 43,000 homes annually to tackle the existing housing shortage. If immigration rates increase, the housing demand could overwhelm even the most optimistic projections.
Number 2, labor and immigration. Canada was and is in need of skilled labor. This includes bricklayers, project managers, carpenters, plumbers, and electricians. So we need people, but how we go about getting these people is a very different question. The Canadian government refused to turn off the taps on immigration despite much pushback from many Canadians. The Canadian government severely messed up, like it's not up for debate. They know they did on immigration. They let too many people in too quickly. However, the Globe and Mail came out with an article years ago stating this very thing would happen. Experts examined the Canadian economy in depth, and they said, guess what? Based on your current housing supply and infrastructure, you cannot handle an immediate surge in population. You just don't have the capacity to be able to do it. But the Canadian government, in its infinite wisdom, barreled onward anyway, allowing so many people into the country. This is how I feel, and I'm sure how many other Canadians feel, that yeah, come on aboard. Everyone has the right to a prosperous, happy life, as long as we have the needed resources and infrastructure to support everybody. For context, in 1999, I rented a single one-bedroom apartment while I was going to university. One kitchen, one bathroom, one bedroom, 650 square feet, $450, and yes, utilities were included. Now, that same apartment would probably rent for easily over $2,000.
Some burning questions on the minds of Canadians. Question 1. If we are in need of skilled labor in Canada, why are immigrants being admitted to fill lower-paying jobs?
Labor advocates have long argued that the program is being misused. Employers are using it to bypass hiring skilled Canadian workers, instead opting for cheaper temporary labor. And the numbers back it up. In 2023 alone, nearly 184,000 temporary foreign worker permits were granted.
No doubt, a certain level of immigration is needed and can grow the Canadian economy, and Canada will benefit from talented individuals. However, Why does it appear that many people are coming to Canada to fill jobs in sectors that are not in short supply and already have an abundance of candidates? Similar to someone way over pouring water into a glass that was almost full to begin with.
After years of telling Canadians that temporary foreign workers are essential to the economy, the Liberal government has done a complete 180-degree turn on its policies and is now severely restricting how many temporary foreign workers and international students are allowed into Canada.
If unemployment is 6% or higher, we're not going to be processing new applications for temporary foreign workers. There are Canadians in your city who need a job.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced a sharp cut in the intake of low-wage temporary foreign workers. The move will impact thousands of immigrants, mostly from India and South Asia. The immigration program has long been used to exploit migrants, but Trudeau's supporters say it was necessary to address labor shortages in Canada. Now, with rising unemployment, a looming housing crisis, and elections in a year, the stakes couldn't be higher.
But now, faced with a 97% surge in population, the Trudeau government is rethinking its strategy.
Immigration can play an important role in filling employment gaps in needed areas, and good-hearted Canadians want to welcome everyone who is good-natured to build a life in Canada alongside them. However, either Canada is 1, not recognizing valuable degrees from immigrants having doctors work as cab drivers, hence their skills are being wasted in needed areas, or 2, admitting temporary and international students into Canada to work and study for areas in which there are already an overabundance of Canadians available and wanting those positions.
New data showing how recruitment of those students failed to match the job market, tilting strongly towards filling spots in business programs instead of sectors with the greatest need for qualified workers.
The biggest proportion of foreign students came here for business programs. So you had more than 770,000 students taking programs like business, commerce, management, and marketing. And the labor shortages were most acute in fields like healthcare, construction, the hospitality sector, not in things like accounting, marketing, and finance, the kind of jobs that you get from a business diploma.
Question 2. Do Canadian college and university business models need to be re-examined? Secondary educational institutions are having to rely on so many international students for the bulk of their income, treating it like a revolving door of money.
Akash Singh came from India and got a business diploma from an Ontario public college. His 2-year program cost $34,000.
It's not fair to all the international students coming here and are expecting a good education and housing and not receiving it. It is also putting international students and Canadian residents in the middle of a problem that isn't either of their faults.
Essentially, we're using the international student program as a source for cheap, exploitable, expendable, temporary labor.
It is also a factor contributing to the housing and the cost of living crisis for current Canadians, because Canada took on so many people so quickly.
Economists and experts have stated that there are too many international students being accepted based on what the current infrastructure can support, but it is condoned anyway due to the large amounts of money international students pay. Institutions only have money on their mind, but aren't properly considering all other factors. Institutions and governments are not ensuring that there is a strong foundation in place to support both the international student that is the right fit and the country's citizens. They just want to make a quick sale and then move on to the next customer in line.
We are prepared to take necessary measures, including significantly limiting visas to ensure that designated learning institutions provide adequate and sufficient student supports as part of the academic experience.
Competition has increased in occupations such as commerce, administrative, and marketing, just to name a few, and even certain low-paying jobs. This leaves many current Canadian residents unable to find employment because the population has increased so quickly without proper insight and necessary planning, such as communication between the federal and provincial government and universities.
So then the question becomes then, how did this happen and who's responsible for allowing this to happen?
So, Marianne, you know that Spider-Man meme where like the three Spider-Men are all pointing at one another? That's exactly what it was like when we asked the feds, the provinces, and the colleges about their responsibility in this. And the fact is, there is definitely some shared responsibility here.
You're trying to fill the wrong buckets, and it's creating frustration on both sides. It also allows for very questionable motives, such as, how are international students able to afford mansions? A student. Really? However, if Canada doesn't get its act together soon, many new immigrants, along with other educated Canadians who are already citizens, will end up leaving Canada altogether in search of a better country.
So-called onward migration, that's immigrants who come and then leave, has been creeping up silently for decades, and it's gone pretty unnoticed.
A new report titled The Leaky Bucket finds the number of immigrants leaving Canada surged between 2017 and 2019 and has yet to stabilize.
We're talking about spikes of 30 to 40% above the normal historical average of what you might expect.
The reasons are not surprising. Everything from housing affordability and inflation to healthcare challenges and fair credential recognition.
Question 3. Why didn't all levels of government communicate and ensure there were enough homes, rental properties, and needed infrastructure in place before they began admitting so many people into the country?
Would be a mistake to blame international students for the housing crisis. But it'd also be a mistake to invite them to come to Canada with no support, including how to put a roof over their heads. In welcoming international students, we have a responsibility to make sure that students are supported when they come to our country. We also want to ensure that international students don't become victims of unscrupulous individuals who offer them inadequate living conditions, sometimes even at inflated prices.
Even months and years later, when the government realized, because no one government body would accept full housing responsibility, the government still didn't close the gates or reduce the amount of people admitted, even temporarily, until things got sorted out. In the past 2 or 3 years, the government's actions appeared to be driven by a sense of urgency to rapidly increase Canada's population, seemingly without adequate consideration for proper planning or the potential consequences of hasty decision-making.
I don't get it. I'm normally a positive person. I hate, where you have complainers or something like that. But when you see policies like this, it makes you wonder, what were you thinking? What did you expect to happen? We're just going to keep throwing in people and having the population get larger. And I don't know, should we look at housing? Does anybody know? Should we increase the amount we build? Let's leave it for another day. We'll worry about it some other day. Well, guess what? Today is here.